Ghost on the Highway by Dana Lee. Chapter 13. Her mind was reeling in time with the oncoming crickets. She would have sat there forever, but the sun was setting fast and it was bone-chillingly cold. The penny had moved. She didn't have any doubts about these things anymore. She got in the car and drove, her stomach wretched. She wouldn't eat. What was tomorrow? Oh God, not Monday. She'd have to call off again. Say she had the pneumonia. It was going around. She must have picked it up at the hospital on Friday with Mother. She wouldn't go to work. She got home to a ringing phone. Hello? Hi, where have you been? It was Chris. Around. I'm sick. I was just about to call off work tomorrow. I'm sorry. Do you need someone to come over and look after you? God, no, I'm a fright. Are you all right? I'm really worried about you, Di. We need to talk. Later, my throat feels as if it's closing. Okay, get some rest. I'll come over to check on you tomorrow after work. All right, goodbye. She called and left a message on the school's voicemail. Where was Margaret? The wind was still battering the shutters, crying at the windows. Mother? She searched the house. She couldn't have gone anywhere. She hadn't left the grounds on her own in years. Mummy? She put on her coat and hat and went out the back door. The icy ground crunched beneath her feet. An icy surge rushed through her innards as she fumbled towards the embankment. A streetlight illuminated the frozen snow. There lay Margaret sprawling in a dark shadow. When she reached her, she realized that it wasn't a shadow at all, but a large spot of her mother's blood. She stared horrified. Her lips started to shake. Mommy? She turned her over. Margaret's mouth hung open. Her face was blue. Her eyes were frozen shut, and a heavy dusting of snow clung to her lashes. The knife was there, beneath her, and clattered against the ice when she had turned her. It seemed as if all of her essence had fled her, returning to the earth. There was a deep wound in her side, and the thin housecoat was now scarlet. She drug her into the house and lay her down on the living room floor. Her brain hummed something foreign and funny. She dialed Chris. Hello? Oh, Chris. Diana, what's wrong? Chris, it's my mother. I think she's dead. She started to cry. What? Shh. Hey, listen, calm down. I'll be right over. What's that? There was a crackling static over the line. Just hang up. I'll be right here. She did, and then James appeared. The knife did it, James. She was afraid of it. He nodded. What am I going to do? She cried. Her nose was running down her face. Her head thudded and the fever burned. Suddenly she felt very dizzy and steadied herself against a chair. I can't do it, James. I can't. It's all too much. He was on her now and whispered something warmly into her ringing ear. I will carry you forever. I'm getting stronger. Your love has brought me here, made me strong. And he gathered her up. He had two good arms now, as he had been the times that she encountered him before the night in the field when he was unhorsed. And she felt as if she was free from guilt, worry, and the pains of living that haunted her head. With James, time passed as it does in between hitting the morning snooze button on the alarm, and the alarm rang through her mind, was silenced by the bleeding of her heart. Stay with me, my darling, my love. He kissed away her tears, and his lips were warm. Chapter 14. Where had she been that night? She could not tell, but she awoke in her four-posted bed in a feverish sweat. The shades were drawn. Mother! She shot up, only to be settled by a caring hand. Gladys was in the rocking chair there next to her. Shh! Diana stared at her blindly, confused, as if last night had all been a dream. Lay yourself back down. Good, that's right. Everything's being taken care of. There'll be a man Mr. Guyon over tonight to see you about all of the arrangements. I'm so sorry, honey." Then the horror of it all struck again. So it was all too true. She turned her face in the pillow. "Thank you. It's not that I don't appreciate it." Her voice wavered, a strained whisper. "But now I need to be alone." "That's no good. Here, let me wash your face." "No, you've got to go." "Okay, but I'll be right outside. Chris is here too. He called school for you. He's very worried about you. We both are. Why don't you take a shower? Is there anything that you need?" "No." "Well, if you need anything at all, just yell." "All right." She finally left the dim room. Diana got up and locked the door behind her. She pulled the Ouija board out from underneath her bed and nearly died as she noticed two dark eyes staring at her from beneath her comfortable bed. There he lay waiting like a cat. "Oh, come out from under there." He laughed. "You don't need that anymore." He pointed to the board. She got back into the bed and pulled the covers up over her. "We are going to dig up that spot near the highway." He sat at the foot of the bed and rested his hand on her leg, which she quickly pulled up and curled around herself. "Will we find you there?" "No." "Why did you have me leave you off there then?" "You will always find me closest to your heart." He looked down at his two hands. Both arms were present now. "I used to know a house there at the crossroads is all. There were some fine people who lived there, fine people for Yankees, but I guess it doesn't matter at all now. Even you're a Yankee now, my love." "How can you talk to me like this?" "You will always leave me. You aren't even real." "I'm real to you, more real than that carpetbagger downstairs. I'll never leave you again." "You need to wash. Can you?" "Can you?" Suddenly she was self-conscious. When did she bathe last? Thursday? What was today? Monday? He laughed. "Always lovely to me, Diana. I suppose that I can bathe, but this isn't my body. But still the same, you felt me. Me. I miss the touches most. I love the way you smell." He climbed up the bed towards her and twisted a piece of her hair into about his fingers. "I won't leave you again," he whispered. "Come with me. Like Mother. She's gone. She must be happy now." "And why aren't you?" "Why?" He stared deeply into her face. "I couldn't find you. Somehow I lost you, but I'm happy now, and soon I'll be whole again." "Tell me about the fine people who lived at the crossroads. They must have been Yankees." "Yes, but fine Christian women they were. She was. 3 of them, right? 3 generations of Yankees." "I suppose. What do you know?" "The dreams. The middle one. She nursed you from the bottle, didn't she?" "She was an angel amidst the fires of hell, and her daughter reminded me of our daughter that Corinne had taken care of." "How do you know that it would have been a girl?" "Because some things you just know. Besides, she would write to me because she had become with child while I was home on leave. I always was sorry for leaving her. She couldn't live without me, and I couldn't without her, and I couldn't die without her still. Anyways, in the letter she said that she was carrying a girl, said she could tell because she was carrying her high." "I see. You have her now, just new." He put his face onto her stomach, dug underneath the blankets while she scrambled to escape. "What do you mean? You know." "No, I can't be pregnant. I can't." "It's too soon to tell." He kissed her stomach. "But I can tell. I felt it from the start. Now I can feel the glow, feel the spark." She relaxed a little. It just wasn't possible. Besides, she wouldn't think of things like that just now. She couldn't. "Tell me about the Yankees who lived in the house." "What else do you need to know?" "Always so curious." "The woman who helped you." "Elizabeth. She found me in a field hospital. Not even a tent, really. They were amputating and embalming right there. They had taken the arm. I was delirious of fever, chills, a ranting idiot. She sat with me first, wiped my face, read me poetry and stories. I went to college. She was real well read. Women in the South at the time weren't. She was very unusual, solid and plain, but a true beauty all the same. She was always dressed in black, which should have seemed a bad omen given the circumstances, but the boys were used to that. Her husband had recently fallen at Fredericksburg, along with her brother, so as she cared for me, returning me to the land of the living, we began to talk, and she found someone to relate all of her sorrows to. She was the first Yankee that I met and liked. She wasn't foolish, cold, or shrewish as our Southern girls would have us believe about the Northern women. She was very kind-hearted, quiet, and sad. She had a little daughter, Esther, who I spoke of before. I loved the child. The old woman, Elizabeth's mother, was another story. She held me personally responsible for the death of her son, and her husband was still off fighting in the world somewhere in the South. Funny how the war displaced us like that. Her kin buried in some Southern soil, and me here. You got better there in that house at first, didn't you? He was staring down at his fingernails that were too long and dirty. It was a fine red brick house. Didn't see much of that down home. He shook his head, staring back through time that was still strange to him. His eyes were reflective, obsidian, shining cold that reflected all of the blues of the cold. I didn't want to live, I told you already, but my body refused to give in. That's just in the blood. I deserved it, that's for sure, and there can't be a hell or else I'd be there. Perhaps love's fires are hotter than hell? That child's eyes, my. She'd bounce in and twist the buttons off my coat. She was a doll. There were the first nice things that I had come upon in a long time. He was staring off again down the highway. The grandfather came home and found you in his house. Yes, after such a struggle, such a long, hard road, he shot me in bed. I didn't know what hit me. I was just well enough to go home. But what was left there for me? You are my home. He wrapped my body in the blanket and hauled me off and buried me quickly at the side of the road. I watched them do it without even really realizing anything for a long while. You're lying there. Just a shell. My arm ended up in someone's well. Sometimes you appear to have an arm, sometimes not. Appearances. Perhaps you would like to see me as the dashing horseman, the Southern gentleman that I used to be. Oh, can you do that? It's not what I can do, but rather what you can see. It's always been that way, but that Southern gentleman was dusted long before my life gave out. He curled in ever closer against her side when a sudden knock came at the door. He smiled and dissolved into a mist into the bed. She got up and moved towards the impostor. Yes, it was Chris. Diana, can I come in, please? No, I need to get a bath. Then will you come down? We'll see. Will you send Glad up? I need to tell her something. Something that you can't tell me? She could hear him breathe against the door. Something that you will never believe. Sure. She heard him leave and went into the bathroom and finally drew a hot bath. She smelled like an animal, a 6-year-old at the end of a hot summer's day. Gladys knocked at the door. She slid into the tub and hid herself beneath the bubbles. Come in. How are you, sweetheart? I'm so tired. I know. The penny trick. Yes, you tried it? It didn't take 3 hours to move. He's buried there along Route 30 at the junction across from a nightclub. There's a big rock there. He's beneath it. Should we dig? Is it right? It's the proof, really. The proof that I'm not out of my mind. The cat was crying outside the door, sticking his big gray paws underneath, feeling around. The women laughed. Gladys let him in, and he came to the side of the old tub, curious about the sparkling bubbles of foam. He should hop in there with you. He stinks. Just worry about getting through these next couple of days. Oh, now, okay? It's going to be really hard. But just in case, I wanted you to know he needs his peace. So do you, and this whole haunt business is driving you crazy. Yeah. Johnny was fascinated with the bubbles and he batted at them. The water was getting cold. I'm going to run out for a bit before the undertaker gets here. No, you just stay here. Whatever you need, Chris or I will get it for you. No, I need to see someone. I have to. I don't know what else I'm going to do otherwise. How else to get through this? Can you understand that? Stop worrying. I won't be long. Well, I still don't think that it's a great idea, but what can I do? I'll come along, okay? How about that? Diana longed to be rid of her and was growing increasingly impatient in the cold bath water. No, please, just leave me alone, okay? I've got to get out now, so I'll see you downstairs with Chris if the two of you insist on staying. Otherwise, you're welcome to go. All right. She left the room with her head down and headed towards the stairs. Quickly, she washed her hair. She had never felt so clean before in her life. After drying, she added some of Margaret's Lily of the Valley perfume and ungodly red lipstick. She pulled her white church dress down over her head, the one she never wore. She stood there a while at the top of the steps listening to those below. She could hear Chris's voice, although he was trying to keep it down. I'm really worried about her, Glad. After what you told me, I'm beginning to think that she's losing her goddamn mind. Maybe. Anyway, she definitely needs help. She's not usually like this. What happened? Now with her mother? It's almost like she's anticipated the whole goddamn thing. It's weird. Too weird. It's too much for her right now. She's not that strong. I feel so bad for her. Who'll be here for her? You can't go talking to somebody else about her business. She'll know what I told you. I know. I just feel terrible. It's for her own good. She needs some professional help. You're as crazy as she is. What are we going to do for her besides maybe piss her off? She just needs someone that she can talk to. She's so alone now, and she's sick too, physically. Did you see her? Bullshit. She likes it that way. She's always been like that. It suits her. I'll talk to her. I know her better than anybody, which, believe me, isn't saying much. You're nuttier than a fruitcake yourself, and there's no one else. Christ almighty, the two of you digging up the goddamn road. Imagine it. They went on, but Diana pulled on a sweater, slipped on her shoes, and padded silently down the stairs, around the corner, and out the back door. Chapter 15. She pulled her car off to the side of the road. The spot was further up the road, but she had to find a spot to hide her car amongst the trees in case they came looking for her. She hated them for her interference, despite their good intentions. The air was still cold and her head hummed. She slipped deeper into the woods where it was warmer. She finally felt safe. She breathed in the cold air and it sent her head spinning a bit more. She thought about Margaret and her talking to the undertaker and probably the police too. No, she wouldn't. What would she say to them anyways? She wouldn't think of that now. She couldn't. A great cold gust rushed through the trees and found her there. It stirred around her heart. She coughed. Then the thud of hoofs and the frozen earth, and he rode in, hell-bent for leather through the gathering fog. He was handsome and whole. His face was clean-shaven but for the mustache. His uniform looked new, not the tattered rag that she was accustomed to. The gold buttons glinted in the dappled light, and she shaded her eyes. The horse's hooves danced there upon the rocks. James removed his hat and held it against his breast as he stared down at her. Still he seemed restless. I'm tired, Diana. Will you leave this all behind? She didn't answer. She might not have understood. She only smiled up at him, for he seemed glorious, and she was beyond moved or common numbness. I never did say goodbye, no, and still I can't. All of my goodbyes seem to linger on the wind, but my duties have been fulfilled, duties to country and God, but still you remain, the reason for my existence after all. So see, you have no choice but to come with me. Ride with me. It's always going to be cold and lonely otherwise, always, until, come, You deserve better than this. You are the only one, the one to free me from the void, the suffering. I know that you feel it. You feel the oneness of us and the absence of me, don't you? Why? Is your existence worth it? Isn't it unsettling? Time, nothing means anything to me but this, forever. It is forever. Forever means everything after all, or nothing at all. Remember me. You can't forget me, even if you don't consciously know much about anything at all. The spark of life in you needs me, the very fire of existence. I love you, but it's really beyond all that, you know. I've lost my way, my ways, my home, my family, and I am out of time. But it's all right now, all right, because love is even stronger, more than all of it. Don't you remember the home, the contentment of my heart? It burns for you always, Diana. He reached out his hand to her and pulled her up behind him atop the horse. Jeb, he whispered as he stroked the red mane, will you come home with me? She curled her arms about him and nestled into his neck. Yes. The wind blew through again and the night fell. The stars dusted the sky. They were looking for her, but the night concealed all too quickly. She was found the following day. Presumably it was pneumonia that killed her. That and the exposure to the elements. Nobody really knew. Nobody really asked. Nobody would go and dig up the side of the road with Gladys. But she still tells the tale. It has become a favorite. And the tragic story of undying love and spirits that linger beyond dreams. The end.